All right, now that we have taken a look at the proposed architecture for our command system, let's start building it. Let's first start out with our base class for the commands. So this, of course, will be our command class, this guy right over here. So let's think about what we're going to need to have inside of our command class. Well, first of all commands are going to need a command name. They're going to need their own name. And this is going to be very important. Basically, every time we instantiate a command, and we must instantiate commands in order to call upon their process method. When we do the instantiation, we must provide a command name to it, and this command name is what we're going to use when we walk through the list of commands looking for a particular command to call upon its process method. So if every command has a command name, we can simply walk through all of the objects that are being referenced inside the list and say, hey, is your command parent? No, okay, next. Is your command name parent? And continue doing that until we find the command name who matches parent. So let's go ahead and undo that there. So command name is going to be important. So this will be our, that is an E, I promise. This will be our field. And it will be private. We do not want anyone outside of the command having any sort of access to the name, because if someone did have access to it and accidentally changed it, well, that would mess up the entire system. So it needs to be private. So let's go and just jot that down. Now, since we need to be able to walk through the list of commands and check each command to see if its command name matches the command we're looking for, we need some way of reading the command name. So we're going to need a public property called command name. So same name, just casing is a bit different, the capital C. And this will be our property. Now we only need a get accessor inside of it because it needs to be a read-only property. Once again, we don't need anyone on the outside world being able to change the command's name. Next, we're going to need a constructor that will allow us to set the command name when the class is instantiated. So we'll need a public constructor. And I'll just go ahead and write the constructor's name down, command. And it's going to need to take in a single parameter of type string. So string command name. This way, when we instantiate each of our commands, we'll do so with providing the command its given name, and we'll then set the command name field internal in that object with the appropriate name. So that's very good. So this leaves us with the last thing that we're going to need in the command class, something that will be common throughout every single command we'll ever create, and that is the process method. So let's go ahead and jot down process. Now, we said that the process method needs to be able to be overridden in all of the extending classes, all of the actual commands. And we talked about creating this method in such a way that we force a contract in place between the command manager and each of the commands in such that each of the commands guarantee the implementation, their own implementation of a process method. Okay? And the way we're going to do this is by making the process method abstract. So we're going to have a public abstract method. So I'll just throw abstract here. Now, since we are creating an abstract method, this is the first time we've ever actually done this. We have mentioned abstract several times in the past when we were first getting into the whole object-oriented scene in this particular volume. We talked about abstract classes. This is really cool. An abstract method, well, when you're putting an abstract member in a class, the class itself must be abstract. So now we need to make sure that the command class is abstract. Now, what happens when you have an abstract class? Simple. You are not allowed to instantiate that class. Well, that's perfect. We don't want to create an instance of the command class. We want to make an instance of its extended classes, things like clear, exit, etc. So by making the class abstract, we're not only providing a really nifty way of guaranteeing that the process method will have an implementation in each extended class, but we're also guaranteeing that there is no way anywhere else in code that we can create an instance of the command class. So that's some pretty cool stuff. So the class itself will need to be abstract. So that's everything that we need in the command class that's common throughout all classes that will extend it. So, Logan, with that, let's go ahead and jump over to Visual Studio.
All right.
Let's put this together.
All right, let's jump over to the commands folder that we created, and let's add a new item. This item is going to be our command class. So this will be command.cs. The first thing we'll do is fix up the namespace, so we'll take that back to knr7.dag, and then we can address the class itself. As we've been talking about, this is going to be an abstract class, so we can go ahead and fill that in here. So we've got an abstract class command.
Okay. So let's go and start out with our private data member, our command name.
Okay. So this will be a private string command name.
Perfect. Now let's go ahead and set up the public property that's read-only, allowing access to command name.
Okay. So this is a public string property called command name. And for this property, we're going to add a get accessor, and only a get accessor because it's read-only. So inside of the get accessor, we'll simply return the command name field. And that's all we need to do for the property.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and define our public constructor that will allow us to set the command name data member.
Okay, so this will be public command, and it will take in a string parameter called command name so that we can set the command name at creation. And inside of the constructor, all we do is set the field command name to the given command name parameter.
Beautiful. And the final thing, let's go ahead and define our public abstract method process.
All right. So we've got public abstract. Now we want to return a string.
That's right.
In the last video we were talking about the fact that a command could return a string value to indicate what happened. If it had failed, if it maybe had some kind of result.
Exactly.
So we want to make sure that we're returning a string from this process method. Of course, the name is process. And now we need to take in the argument so that process is able to handle any of the arguments it wishes to. So we need to take in a string array. And we'll simply call it arguments to match the arguments given in the command manager.
Okay, and
now,
since this is abstract, we cannot provide an implementation for process.
Right, so instead we'll simply terminate this line, and that'll take care of declaring the abstract process method.
Precisely. Okay, let's go ahead and build and make sure everything's good. And build succeeded, and so we now have a base class in which we can build all of our commands from. That's perfect. So with that, in the next video, we could go ahead and just create a very simple command. So that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.